All right, everybody, what is going on? Welcome back to SaberSim's DFS office hours. It is Wednesday, April 26th of 2023 here. No, we already had a 5-game MLB slate getting started about an hour ago, so good luck to all of you playing the early slate. We still got an 8-game main slate later today. Playoffs for NBA are, starting to lost a couple teams yesterday, but we still have a 4-game NBA slate today, so it should be a lot of fun there. And then over in the hockey streets, we also have a 2-game main slate. So a lot of DFS action coming at you today. Get your questions in, get your questions answered. For those of you who are new here, welcome. My name is Andrew. I'm one of the coaches over here at SaberSim. It's a show where we go over how to use the SaberSim app, answer any and all DFS related questions. You can post questions live in the YouTube chat or over in the office hours channel in our Discord server. If you're not in our Discord, there's a link in the description below to get joined up. Going to get the app pulled up here. Looks like we have a couple questions in the Discord to get us started today, but we can always use more questions. So if anybody has anything on their mind, looking for an answer, don't be shy. There are no dumb questions here. So get that question posted so everybody can learn something. All right. So it's like a follow-up from Trouble from a question that I answered yesterday. Trouble said, thanks for answering this. Appreciate the guidance as always. For larger field, 20 max plus, if your intention is to set a batter exposure cap by player, say 40% or so, it's always been recommended to do so in the post build, right? Sometimes has caused the builder to break. So wondered if I need to be looser with exposures on those slates, or whether setting a high cap, say 80%, if my end intention is 40%, would force more variety in the pool without crudely reducing quality. Okay, good question here. So just going to give like a kind of a brief rundown of kind of all the options here. Option one is in the build lineup screen. You could use this, there's max exposure column here. This is a global max exposure. This will work basically for both pitchers and batters. So, I know you said only batters here, but if you did use this, this would work for your pitchers as well. So maybe may not be the best option for your specific case here, but just wanted to touch on that. Other option is in the home screen that you can adjust exposures prior to the build running here. You can do minimax exposures, only batters. You can filter for teams if there's like specific teams or however you want to divvy that up here. And then lastly, the recommended way, like you said, is to handle this in the post build. The reason being is that you are not having an effect on the sims so much in that at that point. Basically, what I'm trying to say is, like, let's say that you put a 20% max exposure to Mike Trout here. The builder's going to build lineups. The builder's going to generate lineups. Let's say that you're building 500 lineups, and let's say that for reference, Mike Trout was in 100 of the first 300 lineups that were generated. That would already be this 20% max threshold. So any new lineup that's generated with Mike Trout would basically be unviable at that point, even though it might be a good lineup. So by doing that, one, you're basically getting rid of a lineup that the builder would have otherwise put into your pool. Or I'm not exactly sure how this works, but yeah, no, that's how it works. So you're basically getting rid of any lineup that the builder would have rather put in first before like another lineup. So then we have to go and generate more lineups to find enough lineups that meet that criteria, that meet that threshold for you there. So that's why I don't love doing it this way. We always want, like the top lineups, I guess is the right word here. But handling it in the post build should be fine. Usually with sim diversity, you're able to get a wide range of especially hitters. With our adjusted ownership, we understand these players' ranges of outcomes better and how variant hitters are in general in baseball. So we see that, Mike Trout's ownership is 26%, but his adjusted ownership is 36%, pushing 37%. So the builder is saying like, hey, Mike Trout might look great point per dollar basis, on a raw fantasy point projection basis, but he really is quite variant. So be careful putting him into too many lineups. And that's what this adjusted ownership is trying to do here. If you wanted to do something where you just put in a raw like 40% max exposure to every hitter, the way that I would suggest doing this, that I think is the easiest here, and I'll show you guys how to do this here. So what I would do is I would download the CSV, which is all this tabular data that you see down here. And then what I would do is I would add filters to it. And then I would filter out pitchers here. So then you're basically only leaving position players. And then go over to this max exposure column, put in a 40, which is the number you said, to the top 2 cells, and then highlight the 2 cells. And then you can just, I can't double click, but you can just drag and then drag to like the last projected player. And then now you have a 40% max exposure to all players, to all batters specifically here. Going to clear this, clear out my filters, going to save it. Going to go back to SaberSim, going to upload this as a CSV here. And just going to scroll over, make sure that this is correct. Where is it? Okay, max exposures being captured. So then I hit save, and then boom, now you have a 40% max exposure to all hitters prior to this build running. And then we can just run a build here to make sure that this is working properly, which it should be. Going to make my 2 adjustments here in the home screen, and I'm going to run 500 lineups. While that runs, I will get resituated. All right. So just waiting for the lineups to run here, and then we'll see what this looks like. Lineups are finishing up here. All right, and we are in the post build. So if we go over to all batters, we can see that nobody is owned more than 40%. And then we have this max exposure of 40% here, with all of these pool exposures being fairly low here, being fairly spread out. So that is another way to do it. I think that you don't have to do it that way. You could do it probably. We could just check, right? So let's reset all these settings. Just red reset button, give it a hard reset here. Make our 2 adjustments. I'm actually interested to see what this looks like with no max exposure, just raw hitters, see what we're doing here. Because, I mean, my personal anecdote is that I'll see that we will suggest stacks over 40% sometimes. But even then, individual hitters are usually fairly spread out. All right. And then we'll go with our, I guess we could just go with 20 lineups. So 20 lineups, 500 lineups here. That is about, how many lineups is that? 1 to 25. For every one lineup that you're playing, you basically have like 25 other lineups in your pool. So my point is that, a lot of space here, a lot of ability to make adjustments overall. So then if I go to batters, my top exposure is 45%, followed by multiple 40%. This is kind of why I don't think you need to do that like stringently here. And then if you wanted to just play it safe, make sure that nobody else pops up, just drop in a 40 to some of these higher guys. I'm going to go to everybody up to like 30% here, give them all a 40 cap, and let it roll from there. And then boom. So nobody over 40. Pretty easy to handle in the post build, but just wanted to walk through all the different ways that you could do that. All right, good question there. Next question came in from Studewood. And this question says, NBA post-build exposure control. Is there an easier way to manipulate exposures post-build? I've exercised my option at the pre-build menu using min-max exposures. I've also adjusted projections post-build, but that only gives me a small bump in exposures, if any. I don't like locking players I really like. And I usually make my last build 10 minutes before lock. It leaves me little time to search for lineups outside of the pool given to me. Is there a way to simplify how much of a player I'm getting in my overall exposures, or should I be doing something different? Okay, so kind of piggybacks on this last question. I think that's great. That keeps us kind of moving in the same direction here. So happy to talk about this. We could even do this on NBA. So we'll talk about tonight's 4-game NBA slate. We'll run a build and talk about the different ways to do this. So let's hop over to NBA. Let's make our 2 adjustments. And let's run a build here. So going to get this NBA build going, and then we will start talking about this. All right, lineups are finished and loading now. So here in the post build, okay, one thing that I really took away from this is that you said, I've also adjusted projections post build. Okay, so once you are post build, you have a pool of lineups. Our pool right here is 610 lineups. Regardless of any changes I make, I still am working with the same 610 lineups, no matter what I do here. So let's say that I increase Steph Curry's projection from 52 to 57, right? So his exposure just went from 60% up to 100%. What is happening when I do that is that the builder is basically reanalyzing all of the lineups via Saber Score. The Saber Score calculation is being recalculated when you update this, which makes sense, right? Because the Saber Sim calculation is a byproduct of the sum projection, the 99th percentile, and the average adjusted own. I am affecting 2 of those variables for the formula. By increasing his projection, I am affecting the projected score of the lineup as a whole. I'm affecting the percentile by increasing his projection. I am shifting the distribution for that player. So when he has a 99th percentile of 70 and I give him a 5-point increase, his 99th percentile is now 75. So that gets updated as well. So by doing that, all I'm doing is telling the builder to reanalyze the lineups via the Saber Score formula and move some up and move some down. But this is not, rebuilding any lineups or anything along those lines here. If I want to have a bigger impact, because my point is that, I have 17% of lineups with Steph Curry in my pool. Regardless what I do, that number is not going to change. I'm still going to have 17%. So if I want more Steph Curry, or if I want less of Xavier Tillman, who's in 80% of my pool, the projection adjustments are better off done in the home screen. So changing Steph Curry to 57% in the home screen will have a much bigger effect. And then changing Xavier Tillman, let's move him down 10%, and reducing him 10% in the home screen will have a much bigger effect. So I'm going to run a second build here. We saw that we had Tillman in 80% of our pool, and we had Steph Curry in 17% of our pool. But now let's run this second build, and then let's just compare with the projection adjustments made in the home screen there. So Curry goes to 33% of lineups in our pool. So we have about double available lineups with him in it. And then Tillman went from 80% down to 46%. So he drops almost by half there. So you can see that projection adjustments made in the home screen are going to have a much bigger effect on the exposures that you get post build. That's kind of why we say to do that like with a grain of salt. Be very careful when you do that. We think that adjusting minimax exposures. So let's say this. Say you have a problem and you can't get to the exposures you want. Troubleshooting steps or the steps to take to get what you want. 1, try to do it in the post build. If you cannot do it in the post build, Then step 2 would be to make sure that your pool size is as high as you can go, depending on your plan. So it looks like Studewood here is on the pro plan. So if I had built 500, what I would do, I would increase this to the max of 5,000. That's going to give you 10 times as many lineups. So your ratio of lineups you're playing to lineups in your pool is going to be a lot bigger. I haven't really seen people have too much trouble getting to the exposures that they want with a pool size of 5,000. But let's say that this step still doesn't work. Then step 3 for me would be to go to the home screen and adjust the projections there. By doing that, you're having a bigger impact on the inputs that go into the sim. So that's why that is the last step. But ultimately, if you're still having trouble getting to what you want, that is the step I would take. So pre-build projection adjustments are going to be the way to affect pool exposures the most. All right. Looks like there was a question here from Bone Dog. Bone Dog, if you're tuning in, I'm going to have to take this one back to the team. Going to have to get some feedback and some input from them. Appreciate the question. And if anything, I will just start a thread in the office hours channel related to your question and get back to you then if I have an answer, like by the end of the day or something. All right. One more question in the Discord, and we're going to jump over to the YouTube chat. Looks like there's a question from Ruck here, and then we will be out of questions. So if anybody has any more questions, now would be a great time to get those in. Okay, Day by Day said, if we would like to lock in a rule to match the field on a percentage ownership over a desired amount, can we do this? Okay, so this is a good question. So the answer is no. It sounds like what you're saying is like, hey, make sure you basically want like a global exposure to say plus or minus, 10% of someone's ownership. So basically what Day by Day is asking is like, hey, say that I want to sort by ownership, and what I want to do is I want to have a min or max exposure of plus or minus 10% and basically be really close to the field. If you wanted to, interesting here. Okay, let's see if we can do this. So the only way I could think about doing this is doing this in the CSV here. So I'm going to download this. I think what you could do is that you could say equals M2 minus 10. And then for max, so in a minute exposure, I'm doing a formula. I'm just saying equals my own minus 10. And then in the max exposure column, I'm just doing equals my own plus 10. And then so then what I could do from that is just take those two formulas and drag them down for all players in the pool. But you would have to be careful, right? Because what you would do is like for all negative numbers, you would just zero them out. So then now what I'm gonna have to do is I'm gonna have to add filters here, and then I'm gonna have to sort this. And then basically for anybody below 0, you're just gonna set it to 0 and then be okay with that. So then for all these negative numbers, just gonna change them to zeros here. And then I would just be careful with like making sure that you're okay with some of these min exposures to these like lower plays. So I think that's fine. And then what you would do is you would just save this, and then let's see if we can upload it. Save, upload. Gonna let this load in here. And then my min and max exposures look to be good. So I'm gonna hit save. And those are all loaded in here. So I would say that just be really careful. The only thing I'm concerned about is like too many min exposures for however many lineups you're building. So I would probably only do this if I'm requesting 150 lineups to be built here. Let me make sure I have my adjustments on. I do. And I'm going to run a build and see if this comes out. So lineups are building, so we didn't break anything. So that is good news. Interesting. Okay, so long story short, we got close. We got really close. But some of these were probably a little too restrictive. I think that this is like a good demo, just because when we set this range from 49 to 69%, but the builder can only return 72.7% of Karis LeVert, I'm okay with that. I think that if you're going to be super restrictive like this, give the builder a little leeway, like plus or minus 5% of your request, and be okay with it. We're getting Karis LeVert at 72.7%. We requested 69 max. That's fine. 3% difference, no big deal. This Dylan Brooks, we requested 65% max. He's at 65.3% max. Fine, no problems. Mobley at 45%, his exposure is 49.3. So all really, really close to what you want. I would be okay with this. We're getting like almost exactly what we want. So don't be like super nitpicky with like 0.3%. Just leave it be. But that is probably how I would do something along those lines. All right. Jumping over to the YouTube chat. Question from Ruck. Good afternoon, Drew. What would be the best way to go for a mid-range NBA build where SaberSim spits out a stars and scrubs build? Okay. For instance, say by default, I'm getting a ton of Giannis/Jokic and a ton of low projected players to be able to afford the high-priced studs. Say I would prefer not to have so much of low projected plays. I tried lowering exposures to the low projected plays, but it just replaces with other low projected plays. Okay, great question. So what I would do here is I would probably just start with a projection filter. So by removing low projected plays from the pool, you're going to make the builder work harder, basically. Say, hey, I don't want to play these guys. Don't even look at them, get them out of my pool. They're not available for you to play in my lineups. So then what I would do is I would go to filters. I would go to add filter. And then I would say show players with my projection greater than, and then I'm just going to set this to like 15 and then see where that cutoff is. I would always recommend coming down here and, looking at which specific players you are choosing to ignore or leave out of your pool, and then make a conscious effort to say like, okay, I am good with that. And then now the builder's not going to have the ability to put those guys in to get that salary relief. It's going to need to be more creative. It's going to have to probably use more of these like mid-salary guys. It probably won't get to as much Giannis or Jokic, unfortunately. But if that's in line with where your thinking is at, I think that's a good way to start. So I think a projection filter, or maybe even like some type of value filter or minutes filter, something to just remove low projected plays or plays that might not see the court so much or just don't grade out well on a point per dollar basis. Get those guys out of your available pool and rebuild and see if you can make any further, if you need to make any further adjustments. But I think filters are going to be your best bet there. Day by Day said thanks. Yep, happy to help out there. That was the first time doing that, but it seemed to work out well. So glad we are able to work through some of those problems together here on stream. All right. Looks like we are all caught up in both the Discord and the YouTube chat here. Really quickly before the show ends, I just want to let you guys know, make sure you guys are playing over on Owner's Box. Contests continue to overlay. Contests are pretty soft. I think the prize pools aren't big enough to attract a lot of the bigger sharks and things like that. So more soft contests are great. Still good prizes, still good prize pools. and you can earn free SaberSim credit by playing over on Owner's Box. Use promo code SABER, get a $500 deposit bonus, and I will look forward to seeing you guys in the lobby over there. But all right, everybody, I think that's it for today. Until tomorrow, I will see you then. If you guys are building lineups throughout the day, question pops in your head, drop it in the Office Hours channel. Let it sit there till the next show. Get us a steady queue of questions to get rolling with. But until then, good luck, take care, and bye.